Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zack. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the tea. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. Zack, I'm glad Neyland got a warm-up because this is the kind of week that she was made for, I think.
Yes, this is the kind of week the general had in mind. It's very disappointing that ESPN just assumed Billy Napier would not be blowing football games, but that's where we are. It should be the 8 o'clock night game, but it is going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be insane. I think this is the most confident the fan base has been about a Georgia game since, I'd say, 2016. Maybe even farther back, because that 2016 team was they like to play with fire. So this is going to be an incredible environment, an incredible atmosphere. The nation's going to be watching, and you could make the case it's the biggest game since 2022 Alabama for this program.
This is one of those weeks that, like, this is why you watch college football. I mean, and obviously if you're a Vols fan, yes, but I think, everyone's eyes will be on Neyland Stadium at that point on Saturday. It's going to be Checker Neyland. It's going to be one of those ones that's the reason you do it. We're going to talk at the end of the podcast about other matchups on the calendar, and especially in the next couple of weeks that we're excited about. And what got me thinking about that is kind of what this at 3:30 p.m. on a Saturday looks like for college football fans. It's obviously, as a Tennessee fan, it's easy for me to say this, but in general, there's nothing like it when you have that mid-afternoon slate where you're like, oh, they're just going to throw down for a few hours. We are going to dive into ETSU. We're going to make ourselves pause and talk about it. It is one of those games where we want to see crispness. We want to see precision, and I think we did. We saw it on the scoreboard for sure. Excuse me, but we're going to see if there's anything we feel like we can glean without extrapolating too much. This game, to me, and you can tell me if you disagree, we'll give our scores and our review in a second. It falls a little bit more in the category of what we were glad we didn't have week one, of like, I don't know how much we can learn from this. But at the same time, it's what result would you want other than the one we got? And so it's a mix of both.
Right. To me, this should be a preseason game in these types of situations, but I understand with how college football is in 2025, that's not the case. Overall, the key is nobody get injured. Just make sure you look fine. Make sure you're looking crisp. We have seen other teams struggle. Georgia, who we're going to talk about, asked their fan base if they enjoyed Saturday against their FCS opponent. They did not. So I can't glean too much, right? I'm not going to go over here and be like, well, this is why I think Mike Matthews is a first-round pick. That's not going to happen, right? So overall, I thought they came out on fire. Everyone knew this was not going to be an issue with 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. I will say Heupel, other than Austin P, funny enough, in 2023, handles these type of opponents, whether they're the FCS or the non-Power 4 games. They're not really an issue under him. So overall, I thought the offense looked great. The defense was fine, probably a lot of vanilla. I think this is one of those where you can actually say that. So I wasn't impressed in the sense of, I think we're going to win a national title, of course, but they handled their business. And the most points in Neyland is kind of impressive when you actually think about the history of the program.
Yeah, it started to tick up and tick up and tick up. And it was like, even if the backups start to have a little flash here and there and run the offense, then that scoreboard's not going to stop. And, it's simultaneously surprising and not that Heupel would be the one to randomly throw up that number on the scoreboard. But, we're going to do it even for these games, even if we weighted a little bit differently when we think about the overall grade for the season. But what did you have as your offense grade? This is the ultimate version of maybe grading on a little bit of a curve, or thinking about that when you do the grade. But what did you have as your offense grade?
Yeah, I went 94, and the reason I couldn't go above a 95, which would be an A plus in my opinion, is they had a turnover. And it was a bad snap. Pendleton said it was on him. It was completely his fault, but it's still a turnover against ETSU. So I couldn't go above a 95. They scored on every Joey drive besides the turnover. They were a little sloppy. Would have liked a little more run dominance. They did have a 42% stop rate, which is 2 yards or less. Not great, but if you look at past games against FCS opponents, that is not uncommon with Heupel because teams just put 7 in the box trying to survive. So I kind of looked at that as not a big deal overall. Overall, not too concerned about it. They still had a 97th percentile success rate. That's fantastic. They were 10 of 14 on third down, 10 and 10 in the red zone scoring. Maybe you'd like a little more efficiency with touchdowns overall, but the second half was backups. That I think Tennessee was not exactly showing the whole playbook. They protected Joey very well. I can't remember him being touched. Maybe on the touchdown pass to Matthews because he was scrambling. They were more efficient with the passing games. They cleaned up the quick game. That was very important. I thought that was nice to see. I love seeing Matthews and Brazel both with over 100 yards. I think that's a big confidence booster. You don't think about confidence boosters and wide receivers, but those are guys that they need that. Brazel did not have the year he wanted last year. Matthews is still very young. They both look very engaged in the offense. Thought Perry and Hurd deserved a shout out. Did a great job. Perry has really done well at right tackle. I've been so impressed with him considering what they did. And I watched some 2024 Georgia film. We'll get to that later, but Lance Hurd looks so much better than he did last year. He looks healthy. He looks athletic. He looks much leaner. And I thought the offensive line overall did a great job protecting Joey. So very, very good. 72 points. I will never, ever complain. I remember watching Jeremy Pruitt offenses. So I will not be bitching too much about it. But overall, I had 94. Just the turnover. You can't have a turnover like that. If you do that against Georgia, that's going to cost you games.
And everything's going to be so much more tight. And so I know it's a home game this weekend coming up, but you still can't, a mistake is going to happen. It's really how you recover from it. But we want to see mistake-free football if we can. Mm-hmm. I had a 93 as my grade. It's the grading on a curve thing. It's like of course, they set the record. They had over 700 yards of offense. Everybody kind of looked crisp throughout. They weren't sleepwalking. And gosh, it's the most annoying feeling in the world when your team sleepwalks through one of those games. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned the Georgia example, the South Carolina example. That's not even me throwing shade. It's just like you're there as a fan. Oh, there's a weather delay. Maybe they're not awake yet. It's like, no. Let's take care of business. And so when we've had those examples in the past of let's put the points up already. I'm glad that we never had to worry about that. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason I'm still at a solid A there. And again, kind of just floating in that range, almost can't go higher than that given the opponent. The backups looked crisp and looked engaged. It wasn't like they were just going through the motions. The two younger tailbacks looked really good. Mm-hmm. Two younger receivers looked really good. You and I were kind of back and forth on dreaming on the promise of those guys a little bit, accounting for the opponent, but dreaming on the promise of them a little bit. There were guys out there executing and ready to make plays. And, there was a little bit less overpowering nature from the backup offensive linemen, but we've also got a pretty good deep group there. And they looked really good from the start. And so, from just it made me giggle and enjoy it perspective, the Chuck to Matthews deep was something where I was like, there are former Vol quarterbacks. I think of Tyler Bray, who's just he's smiling right now because the dude Chuck deep and it ended up connecting. And anytime that can happen, that's a check mark for me. And so I found that my notes for this game were much more sparse. I wasn't in the nitty gritty and pointing arrows at different details and things like that. It was much more big thing happened, big thing happened, big thing happened, which makes for, less granular analysis, but you get the overall feel and it lands you right around an A. did you land in the same or a similar place for the defense, or was there kind of a different vibe?
A little lower. I gave them a 91, so still an A. They gave up a TD drive in the fourth with third stringers, so I don't count that against them. Seeing Cade McNamara on my TV screen threw me off. I
So
was like,
strange.
I
So
did,
strange.
it did not, was not expecting that, and that's maybe my fault for not paying attention. But I'm like, that's 2021 Cade McNamara, Big Ten champion. I was like, is that the right one? So I was like, okay, that's
Maybe in a couple years we'll see Dwayne Underwood playing,
I
or Bryce, not Dwayne. Sorry,
Bryce Underwood.
Bryce. What in the world? Bryce Underwood playing quarterback for ETSU just a few
Maybe
years.
Sharon Moore will be coaching ETSU. That might be the better get in 3 years. So I didn't hold the third string touchdown give up against them. Still would have liked more pressure from the front four. The defensive tackles were quiet. Overall, I'm not overly concerned because Eason's a 6-year senior, and he might have been like, let's save a little. Let's put that in reserve.
I did like
they moved. Right, exactly. I like they moved Bailey inside with Eason to start, and West played more snaps with 27. He had the second highest grade. I still love that guy. I wish he would play more. I'm not in the room. I just think that would be nice to see. Ross was the highest grade defender. He's so good at setting the edge. I don't know how much pass rush he's going to have, but man, can he set the edge. I still feel a little vulnerable in the middle of the defense outside of Carter. 3 sacks, but a lot less blitzing than we saw against Syracuse. So overall, I'm not going to worry too much. Linebackers were, again, flying to the football. Thought Joseph's continued to do his thing. Only six havoc plays, which is 49th percentile, which I think kind of points a little bit to the lack of the 4-man pass rush, lack of blitzing we saw in this game. They were great against the run. The corners continue to impress. Really wish the safeties did more, but that's just going to be a weekly thing with me. I understand that they are there to bend but not break. Hard to really know how much improvement we had from week 1 to week 2. Unlike the NFL, I think your most improvement in college football is week 2 to week 3 when you consider usually you're playing, at least against the big teams, playing a lower level opponent like this, where in the NFL it's week 1 to week 2. So I don't know how much improvement we actually saw. But overall, I was happy with that in 91. I think you had a little bit of a lower grade than I did, though.
I had 88. I bounced between 87 and 88, and it's more of it's less of like harsh critique and more of just like, you got to earn the A, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously did from a scoreboard perspective, and there were multiple guys who flashed, and they were sideline to sideline. There wasn't times where they were like exposed in a big way, but they did not have those flash plays. They had pass breakups. Like Hood was still physical. Redmond was physical. They were engaged the whole time. But there weren't that many moments other than the Josephs like taking over when they were inside the 10 for the sack. There weren't that many moments of just sheer dominance. Like, we're way quicker, way faster. It was just an overall taking care of business kind of day. And like you said with Eason, it's like maybe they knew it was an overall taking care of business kind of day. I didn't have any perception of them being lazy or lollygagging or mailing it in. It wasn't that at all. It was just not, they just didn't have the major flash play. And I think, it's funny. I'll go ahead and give a nod to him. And I think it's where, we've done offense and defense grades. We haven't done special teams grades yet. And I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, there's a blank spot on the outline from me. If Boo Carter continues to pop like that, that's where the flash plays came from. And so we'll give him the shout out. If Boo Carter continues to pop like that, then we have to, 1, start giving grades to the special teams, hopefully still positive ones. And 2, they kind of took some of the flash plays. And so we had some on offense. Obviously, you're always going to with Heupel against an opponent like this. The other ones came from the special teams game, and it's great to see that. Great to see that, even against an opponent like this.
2 things. 1, the first touchdown they gave up was not their fault because it was the turnover, and I think that ball ended up inside the 5, if I'm not mistaken. It was at least inside the 10, so I didn't hold that against them. The second thing, and something I've appreciated, is these FCS coaches are now just admitting what the situation is. and they have become more honest about what they're trying to accomplish in these games. And we saw ETSU, their entire game plan was, because they're a top 25 FCS team. So they have playoff hopes this year. Do not get our quarterbacks killed. So they were rolling them out, dumping them off,
Getting rid of the
2
ball.
seconds, or get rid of the ball as quick as you can. We're not taking post route shots. We're not going to run deep curls, anything like that. So that was my also adjustment there, was just ETSU. Tennessee is not going to, even against UAB, is not going to see that type of offense the rest of the year. They're going to see, I don't want to say real offense because it feels like I'm taking a shot at ETSU, but they're going to see more complex offensive schemes where they can actually get into their bag instead of saying, let's just play our base, cover 2, cover 3, we'll send an A-gap blitz and we'll be fine. So I think it's kind of hard the last 2 games because Syracuse had major struggles against UConn, but Angeli still looked great against UConn. They just couldn't run the ball. So it's hard to judge. I feel more comfortable in the offense than the defense, I will say at this point. I feel like I'm pretty confident that the offense is a little further along, but that doesn't mean the defense isn't going to be very good. It's just, I just trust what I'm seeing a little bit more with the offense, just because they've been more efficient.
I don't even mean it as a negative. It's just
right.
Keep popping. We're still looking for playmakers, and we'll have every opportunity to see them. I think we've avoided it long enough. We've beaten around the bush long enough.
We've been positive on our 4 episodes, and now it's like, oh, hey, why have we sucked for the last 4 years against Georgia?
We have to step into Kirby's dream world and talk about, we're going to start with looking at the past as much as we can glean from that, looking at 2023, 2024, thinking about the last time they came to Neyland and then the most recent time that we played them overall, what we saw in the numbers, what we see in the box score, and then kind of what we see on film from those games, that in a lot of ways is a tip of the cap to Kirby. And, that's not me bowing down in any way. It's just the fact of the matter. And so I want to start with, actually, you pick. Do you want to go 23 the last time we were in Neyland, or do you want to go 24 the most recent time that sounded promising and then fell off a little bit?
Let's go 23 because that was your assignment. You watched the film from 23. I watched the film for 24. So I want to get your thoughts on 23 because that was Heupel's. I think you could even make a case worse team. I thought 21 might have actually been a little better just because they were so good on offense that year. So what did you see in 23 that caught your eye?
The biggest thing from 23, and this is a combination of seeing the film and seeing us not produce in the pass game, like not produce through the air. And, I kind of felt myself like, yeah, we didn't produce through the air. It's a Kirby Smart team. We couldn't find space. Didn't seem like we could find space at all, frankly. Then going to the box score and seeing that, like, the leading receivers for that game, for example, were, and this is Milton, and like you said, this may be like where we had that slight dip in talent. We hadn't exactly met it with recruiting yet. And so this isn't throwing shade at any guys. It's just these were the top receivers for that game. And this is in the context of the Kirby Smart defenses from 22 and 23 range. We had Squirrel White with 5 catches, Chaz Nimrod with 5 catches, McCallum Castles with 2 catches, and then just a slew of guys with 1 catch. And that is I'm not missing anything. That is your wide receiver production from that year. Squirrel with 5 for 45, Chaz with 5 for 44, McCallum with 2 for 21. And then we're into like the random dink and dunk that found somebody. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And like, even the fact that McCallum was involved there shows that Heupel was trying to get the ball in somebody's hands. But we saw this a little bit with Chaz. We saw it, I think, a little more with Squirrel White. And like accounting for the fact that he did play hurt some more recently before transferring, he was this combination of like not straight up not physical enough to be an X outside receiver, even in an offense like this, and not quite shifty enough to be the one who would get the ball on things like jet sweeps and stuff like that, especially against a Kirby Smart defense with those cornerbacks. And so when you have that combination, he's trying to almost like he's trying to bump up a couple ranks in what his talent allows him to do within our scheme. You bump up against these like what feel like kind of dink and dunk targets for a quarterback that, I mean, Milton, we all know has the cannon on for the arm, but if he's asked to dink and dunk and pick apart, the accuracy comes into play, and that leads to the offense being a little bit off schedule if anything goes wrong. And so it's just one of those games where it didn't feel like we stressed Kirby Smart out at all. And you said on one of our early episodes that you were talking about the offense, but I think I agree with it either way. I want to see something that would stress Kirby Smart out. Mm-hmm. And in 23, it didn't seem like we had much of that for the game.
They had issues with tempo that year. The other thing I was thinking about Heupel's top 4 receivers since he took over. So it's some combination of Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Velus Jones, and Brew McCoy, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, Tillman and McCoy are big-bodied receivers. So when they get jammed, they struggle dealing with the athleticism that Georgia provides on the line of scrimmage, because even if you can beat that jam, you're slowing down your route releases. The Georgia corners are able to cover. Then you take Hyatt and Jones, who are too skinny to beat the press, and they have struggles with just getting back to their route, right? So this group is pretty well balanced. Mike's 6'1", Braylon's 6 feet, Brazel's 6'5", and they're all 3 pretty good athletes. So my hope would be, thinking back to that 23 game, other than just the quarterback, because, that's a lot of what this boils down to. It's just so obvious, is can they get off the line of scrimmage successfully? It's something Tennessee has not done in the 4 years they've played Smart with Heupel. They just cannot beat Georgia's corners off the line of scrimmage. And even though Georgia's got good corners this year, they do not have the clear-cut first-round pick we have seen on past Georgia teams. They've got good corners, but they're not quite there yet. Maybe they develop into that. So I'm really curious, too, if playing earlier in the year, where Georgia's maybe playing some new corners, hasn't quite gotten experience against really good teams yet, if that could be a factor with our wide receivers being able to get a little bit off and being a little bit more playmakers than just trying to not drown would be the term I would use the last 4 years with our wide receiver play.
The 3 things really that Georgia does so well in the secondary are the physical right away. And they absolutely do the thing of like, we're going to test the limit of where a flag comes in. And, we saw it at Alabama when Saban was there. We see it at Georgia with Smart. They do that. They tackle extremely well. And so even if you're going to try they do not get lazy on tackling ever, frankly. And so, some of these teams that we're going to play on our schedule are going to get lazy on tackling, and there's going to be like a quick route to Matthews, and he's going to break that first tackle, and we're off to the races. It's so rare that happens against Georgia. And it's not just because they rally, it's because every single guy focuses really heavily on tackling. And then the other thing that they do, and when I look at the personnel that we were throwing at them in 23, the other thing that they're extremely good at is they pass things off like smooth as butter every single time. And so when you have our offense that relies on, it doesn't necessarily rely on yak as much as it relies on tempo and them having to nail their assignments down. Well, the yak wasn't going to be there with the personnel that we were throwing the ball to. And then if those guys are the best version of a Score White and a Chaz Nimrod together on the outside, is that you're in tempo and you switch something off and they get on top of the defense. Just doesn't really happen against Georgia. And so it's a little bit no wonder that the production looks like this, but I mean, the yardage is just it feels so silly when you look at it. When you check out Jalen Wright's huge run to start the game, like genuinely not a better way to start a game in Neyland. And for the rest of that game, and they took back control, but even when they had lost control, quote unquote, with that run, and Neyland was going insane, I don't know that Kirby Smart was that nervous. And that's a credit to him and a credit to his team, but it just shows that they were like, all right, we're just gonna keep coming at him. And eventually it'll start building back our direction. And they're very good at that.
For the Kirby can't coach, he can only recruit crowd, I want you to go watch the 24 film and watch their defensive backs. Georgia's the only team against Heupel that every game successfully is able to mix coverages and communicate effectively. Alabama didn't do that in any of the 3 games we played them under Heupel. They always left guys wide open in the back end, 21 and 23, even when we lost, the blown coverages everywhere. Georgia doesn't do that. They're not afraid to play light boxes, and they rely on their technique, discipline, and those damn stunts and those damn pre-line movements they're going to do. Now, the pre-line movements should not be a factor because of the new rule this year that you're not supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. And Georgia hasn't done really any of that the first 2 games. So it'll be interesting to see that. And you mentioned it. Their corners, they jam, then they play 10 yards off of you. And because they've been jamming you, they get a little away with a little bit of contact, not crazy amount, but enough to where they can affect the play. They know how to play college football pass defense, right? It's not the NFL where if you breathe on a guy, they're going to call it. They are going to be physical with you. Their linebackers are so quick to attack all of our pullers. Now, last year, when I was watching the film, that was where Tennessee had success, running the ball, pulling people. But Georgia's edges and linebackers were not as effective last year stopping that. And this is also, I think, part of what Tennessee struggles with. Because Tennessee relies more on quicks than checks, Kirby throws these odd formations with 3 linemen, three or 2 down linemen, 4 backers, 6 DBs. You can't tell what coverage you're playing. And because we're running so quick and we don't like the check, it'll be a pass play on 1st and 10 that we call. They've got 2 down linemen. I saw it multiple times last year. We don't check it, which is not something we do, especially on 1st down. So you get these weird coverages. You get split field coverage where they're playing zone on one half, man on the other. They'll play cover 2 on one half, cover 6 on the other. They just are able to really stifle the offense because they're so good in their communication and they're so good at just throwing the right changeups against Tennessee. I would also say part of our issue, Daniel, and I want to get your opinion on this. It feels like the O-line communication has been bad the last 3 years, especially last year. And I think that's going to be a really big thing in Neyland because you have to communicate properly and know your assignments and identify the mic so you can get your proper run assignments on the offensive line. And the quarterback's going to have to help a little bit. That's going to be so important, especially because Sam Pendleton's only his 3rd game at center. Potentially Sanders in his 1st game as a right tackle. He's questionable. That's going to be so important. They have to communicate properly on the front because if they can't protect, this isn't going to matter. And I'm just going to give you a stat. Tennessee, you take out 2021, they actually had a little success throwing. In EPA, which is expected points added per drop pack, so that factors in sacks as well. 23rd percentile in 2022. 19th percentile in 2023, 28th percentile in 2024. We have no chance. No chance against Georgia with those type of numbers. And it was 37th percentile in 2021. So it's not like we were lighting them up. That's going to be the key. It is they have to be able to communicate on these passing downs or when they pass, especially if Georgia's going to throw these odd coverages, odd front, split field coverage stuff.
The combination of the odd coverages, and I think it's very nice that you would point out like the split field. One, we've already talked about it. They're physical. But that combined with these odd coverages for an offense that relies on tempo and kind of identifying leverage points as the way to anticipate throws or to know guys are going to be open or to have a guy run into space. If there's split field coverage and you don't have a good handle on it, you don't know where the leverage points are. Like the receivers don't, and the quarterback doesn't. And that allows them to So it becomes like a perfect storm. And I feel like we saw this a little bit more last year. And I don't know if that was Kirby having a suspicion about the quarterback limitations and knowing that it was going to be like no adjustments were going to be made, and so he was going to sit back and do these things. But when you have this split field coverage, and it's not just split field coverage of like, oh, they're going to get creative, split field coverage where the dudes are like 8 yards off of wide receivers, and you almost like you're not going to know what kind of coverage they're in until you start to approach them, and then the play's over. Like the play is kind of over. Combined with the perfect storm comes when the reason they're allowed to be so covered up in the back end is they drop 7 or 8. And then they still sometimes get a guy not home, but really close to a pressure because they drop 7 or 8 and they still have a side of the line that's overloaded and they still have a really athletic linebacker who like comes late. And frankly, either whether it's communication or just straight up surprise, there were a couple moments in last year's film, and this was like you sharing the clips with me. There were a couple moments in last year's film where they rushed 3, and all it was 2 kind of slightly overloaded on one side of the center, and then the third one comes just a breath later than the other ones, and they were able to make it through. And that combined with guys being covered up on the back end, there I think there were some quarterback limitations last year that let Kirby sit back and move pieces on the chessboard like that with really talented players. But if we don't clean up the O-line communication and the ability to pick up these, best description I have is funky things, it's not going to matter that we have a quarterback who's more willing to step up and throw it in if he does get clocked a couple times.
Their ability, I don't know how they do it. It's almost superhuman, their ability to communicate and run this odd stuff against our tempo. And last year, Heupel did slow it down, I think intentionally, to try and check into the right stuff, and it didn't matter. It even, like, I just think about, like, Nick Saban, who everyone thinks is the greatest defensive college coach of all time, rightfully so, and how much success we had against them, right? And it's pretty similar stuff. I think Alabama relies a little bit more on technique in the sense of like their defensive linemen. They don't run as many stunts and stuff like that. They're just going to trust their 4 where
They're
Kirby will throw.
set every edge. Everyone's exactly where they're supposed to be. It's not as exotic.
And Kirby lets you free reign a little bit. And Kirby's going to run stunts. And he's like, you know what? I know that guy's supposed to do the flat. Let's just blitz him. Who cares? I trust our guy to get there. Stuff like that. And the fact that they can communicate everything so quickly and the fact that they run it so well is just, it's like Kirby studies Tennessee's offense for a month. Like he takes the entire month of April and is like, hey, I'm in the film room for 12 hours in April every day. Do not talk to me. This is what I'm doing. It's incredible. And it's like, it's not even one game where Tennessee's been able to put up like 30, right? They've shut them down. You like take the 23 game. It was literally just Jalen Wright. You take the 24 game. It's the first drive for 12. And what's even funnier, Daniel, Tennessee scored on every first drive of the game. They've scored 3 touchdowns on the first drive of the game. And then the 1 year they didn't, in 22, they still kicked a field goal right off a turnover. So they've been able to score a touchdown first drive of the game, and then Kirby's like, it's like he dupes Tennessee. Like, I know he doesn't.
Then it just goes to zilch.
Exactly. He's like, okay, I'm going to let them think what they're going to run's going to work today for that first drive. And then I'm going to do the exact opposite of everything I did. And then they're going to keep thinking it's going to work because they scored.
It's one of those things where,
and I know that's not how it is. I understand that. but
it feels
that's how
that way.
Feels. Yes, it's like he's rope-a-doping Tennessee. And it, like last year, I'm like, oh my God, we can run on them. We're going to run on them. We're going to run for 250. Dylan Sampson's going to have his 2021 Travis Stevens game, or 2001 Travis Stevens Florida game. He's going to have this. And it was like, nope, after that touchdown, they shut everything down. And it's why he's the best defensive coach in the country.
Yeah, it's meant as a compliment to him, like not us throwing our hands up. It's like there is a secret sauce there that is just is extremely good coaching. And it's I have massive frustrations with how we perform in certain games in Heupel's tenure and blah blah blah. But these games are the only times where I feel like a team that's maybe better than you, more talented roster than you, if you flip a coin over and over again, eventually it's going to go like 55-45 if the talent weights that coin a little bit on one side. And they beat you some games. He's the only coach that we face that I feel like it should be a coin flip. Like occasionally we should hit on one of these, and it's just constantly it feels like he has the answers. And I don't mean like, oh, we tried to do this trick play and they blew it up because it felt like he sniffed it out. I mean on like our tempo and the things that are the engine. He feels like he's just sitting back like, yeah, you're going to be over there. And, I'm happy to tackle you over there if you want me to this time. I look at last year's box score. So when I looked at the 23 tape and looked at the 23 box score, I, entered a very brief but significant bout of depression. And then I was like, I need to look at another box score. Yeah. I need to look at another box score to see if we were more productive. And it absolutely felt last year in 24 like we were more productive. And we were by a couple of metrics. But even last year, when you look at the receiving, it was like roughly the same story. Like in 23, our two leading receivers were White and Nimrod with 5 catches, 45 yards, 44 yards. Last year, Kitzelman and Squirrel, 4 catches, 6 catches, 46 yards, 45 yards. It's like a carbon copy of dink and dunk production that is year over year over year. Georgia had, let me look and make sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different receivers who had more yards than our leading receiver last year.
Well, we'll get to the past, the weird passing stuff with Georgia. Here's another thing, Daniel. So 2 stats. One, Josh Heupel in every hit game, or as a head coach in UCF and Tennessee, over 50% of the games he's coached, Tennessee, his team has scored at least 40 points. The most they've scored against Georgia in 4 tries is 17. That shows you how amazing Kirby Smart's been able to do this against Heupel. And the second thing is the third down. Tennessee in 21 had a 50% success rate on third down. Awesome. Great. 22, 20%. 23, 17%. 24 was actually 48%. And so they did improve. Their rushing rate improved. They were above average in their successful runs. But the third down's really the key, because if Tennessee can get in 3rd and 4, they'll be okay. It's the 3rd and 10s they are completely unsuccessful at. If they get in 3rd and 10 against Georgia, they have 0 shot. If they're going to go 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9 on 4 straight drives, all 4 of those drives are ending in either a field goal or they're ending in 0 points, depending on the field position. They cannot afford bad first down plays. They cannot afford the stupid false start on 2nd and 7 to go 2nd and 12. They cannot afford a holding on first down, because they will not convert on third down. They just won't. And that's not even a Tennessee thing. That's just against Kirby Smart, period.
If we have 2nd and 11, Kirby is going to do everything in his power to set up the box such that he dares us to run the ball. And we're going to. And maybe reasonably, we're going to. And then they're going to rally and tackle extremely well, and it's going to be 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6. And none of those are fun. None of those are sweet against Kirby Smart. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that there's not like a crowd noise concern. Things can be clean, and it's just muddied up so bad against him. I'm at the point with this game, and we're going to get to a score prediction in a little bit after we talk about the Georgia offense and what it's looked like in recent years against our defense. And maybe that's, maybe that's where we have to shift the focus. I'm at the point with our roster, and I said this to you this week offline, where I feel like we can beat them, But then when I have to map out how, it becomes a much more challenging endeavor. And that's not a fun place to be. And it's not that I'm concerned about coaching and it can't get us there and all this different stuff. It's just, I think that it is there in the ether somewhere. But when you tell me to show you how it's going to happen, and I think about the fact that he hasn't scored 17 points or over 17 points against Herbie, it's like, okay, well, I definitely wasn't going to predict a 13-9 win. And so what is the actual route to do this? Now, with everything in coaching, and you and I kind of share the same philosophy on this, they haven't done the thing until they do the thing. And so maybe we find a way to break through and do the thing, but it was darn impressive, unfortunately, to watch them not let us do the thing over the past couple of years.
Every Josh Heupel game outside of the Georgia games, it boils down to, how does Tennessee win? You can just go ball offense, go burr. Like that has been it. Like they just score. They can't against Georgia. It doesn't matter. So they're going to have to we're going to have to see stuff we haven't seen. Right. And it seems like against Syracuse and against ETSU, they've installed some stuff. I'm really curious because they did not play pistol. If the pistol turn your back play action, and I might eat these words if I see a couple defensive ends just crush our tackles.
Exactly.
But it's possible that could be a different dynamic that gives Tennessee an edge. And some of the screen diversity we have seen in some of the different variations they've run on their halfback screens, slight adjustments, but enough, could be a factor. That's the other thing. Tennessee's screen game has been terrible against Georgia, where usually they can succeed against everyone else. So if these little adjustments work, then that could be the secret to getting to 24-27, giving you a better chance to win.
And we have the personnel to do it, I think. There's been times where, like, even if we had a screen set up, it's like, we've talked about it preseason, like you have squirrel blocking for someone. It's like, no, we actually have the ability to set it up to where Kitts or Davis is blocking for a dynamic wide receiver. And if they're going to play that far off the ball and tackle that well, then you need to block up that first defender and get somebody out in space and stress them a little bit. It's doable, but you got to get it. Like you said, it has to be something that isn't exactly what we've seen before.
So let's go to the other side of the ball. Daniel, before this game, I want you to be Billy Joe from Vol Calls, okay? You love the Vols, but you do not know what success rate is, okay? I want you to think, just how does Georgia offensively beat Tennessee? Just like really quick, nitty-gritty, 2 sentences. How do you think Georgia beats Tennessee on offense in the past?
What I'm scared of them doing, what I picture when I picture Georgia beating Tennessee, is them running downhill and then in recent years layering passes over the linebackers to 17 different tight ends who all look alike and marching down the field.
You're half correct. So Tennessee in 21, that's exactly what happened. They just absolutely demolished us in the run. Since 22, Georgia has been successful over 50% every game from passes. They have an over 50% pass rate success against Tennessee in every game. They have been, at least in the last 3 games, 89th percentile in success rate, or EPA per drop back, in their pass game on offense.
89?
And that is 89th, at least 89th. So they've been 89th. I cannot remember 23. It was in the 90s.
89th was the floor?
24. Yes. The last 3 years. 89th was the floor. So, and that is not with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Okay.
Well, and it's not always been with, they lost their offensive coordinator who was so creative. Like, they lost.
Yes, exactly.
Like, we thought that might change things.
Tennessee got killed last year in the pass game. Carson Beck played his best game at Georgia against us last year. And it's not like they have Julio Jones running around at wide receiver. Or it's not 2018, 2019, 2020 Alabama passing game. That's what's killed Tennessee. They've actually defended the run perfectly fine the last 3 years. they've limited the explosives in the run game. Georgia's had success, but it's been the pass game where they kill, and they've been killing us on third down with the pass. And think how fast Tennessee started. And if you remember, it was a 3rd and 12, and Carson Beck hit a pass over the middle that probably should have been picked off by McCoy that got them going. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
That has been the issue. Now, for Tennessee, this is the good news. Gunnar Stockton is the quarterback, and he has not been ripping the ball down the field. It has been a massive complaint by Georgia fans that they've been kind of calling him Captain Checkdown. Could that be design? I don't think so. It seems like the film is saying he's just not ripping it, and that's what the Georgia fans are saying. If they get decent pass defense or just be able to get a couple sacks, they can win this game defensively. They don't need the offense to go 2022 Alabama. They just need the defense to hold it back enough, get them the ball enough, and 24 points should be able to win this game, honestly.
The feel of last year's game, the year before a little bit, but last year's game more so to me, was the offense was at a point where it was like nothing doing. And, I don't mind like a gritted out, nasty game where it's like you're in the trenches and you're seeing if Samson can get 2 yards in a cloud of dust, frankly. That is very ineffective when they're getting multiple first downs every drive. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the examples last year of it just seemed like Beck got hot. And like
he did.
Yeah, it was the fun part of the roller coaster. And he had other good games, but they were oftentimes against much lesser opponents, not defenses that were among the best in the country and playoff teams. And he just got the hot hand and was slinging it. And I think about this game coming up, and I'm not thinking about last year between the hedges, but think about this game coming up. If we want to have those moments in the second and third quarter where it's like we hold up or we even take a lead back, or it'd be amazing if we're growing our lead, but take a lead back or something like that. It's 9-7 and we make it 14-9. The way that's going to happen is through like forcing them into a 3 and out. It's so difficult to do that if every single time they have the ball, they move it to at least like the 35 or 40 yard line, and they're typically, they're going to cover on special teams. Like, you're going to be pinned at the field position you don't want to start with. And so unless we can generate a way, and I have my concerns about this, but unless we find a way to actually inject like multiple 3 and outs in a row, asking the offense to go 75 yards against this team multiple times you're not going to come back if you have a deficit. Eventually it's going to break.
Tennessee's held Georgia to under 4 yards per carry the last 3 games. That's fantastic. That's incredible.
That's what you want.
That should be the number 1 point on Tim Banks' resume if he applies for an NFL defensive coordinator job. Please don't, Tim Banks, but if you do, that should be your number 1 point. They just get killed on these play action passes. Bowers killed them, I believe, in 23, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Georgia's not having like superstar wide receivers, but they seem to get open. You're right. Can you force a third now? And the other thing I will say, they cannot get pressure with 4 against Georgia. They have not been able to. Mm-hmm. That's a huge concern. And I think if you're Tim Banks, and I understand and agree with his defensive philosophy with this team 95% of the time, if in this game, this is the one where you might want to go ahead and pull it off, put it out on the table, where you're dialing up whatever blitz package you can. You got Stockton in Neyland, his first ever road start. Tennessee comes out, gets the ball, 7-0. I'm sending the house, man. I am going to pressure him and make him beat me. I'm going to do, if he throws over 300 yards, so be it. I'm putting 6-7 guys in the box. I'm I'm putting guys outside, maybe shading a little towards Branch in the slot, just so he can't kill me over the middle with my backers. That might be the only adjustment, and I'm manning everyone up. Now Stockton can run, so you've got to be disciplined in your gaps. But I think that's how Tennessee's going to have to beat them. Is if Gunnar Stockton throws for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, I'm going to tip my cap to him. Great job, bud. Awesome. Great work. I cannot live with Tennessee, just 10 of 14 on third downs because Georgia's in 3rd and 3 all game.
Sitting back and like hoping that the back end holds up and the linebackers, cover those layers properly. Again, this isn't 2019 LSU wide receivers, but it's good wide receivers. Like Dylan Bell's good. Zachariah Branch is good. Delp is a really good tight end. And then he can stretch the field multiple different ways as a tight end. If you sit back and ask them to find space, they're going to. As soon as you said, we have to emphasize pressure more, we have to emphasize blitzing more, we have to hopefully surprise him with the blitz, get them in disadvantageous down and distance, to take away the cutesy little screen that gets him a first down or cutesy little quarterback run that gets him a first down. As soon as you said it, I tensed up a little bit because my thought was, we got to stay disciplined on those. And you circled back around to it. We have to stay disciplined on them. He can run the ball. And frankly, from some of the complaints that we've heard, it seems like he wants to run the ball. It seems like he almost gets to that pretty quickly. And so his move in Neyland, when he can't hear anything going on, if he feels pressure from the nickel or whatever, it might be to find a gap and run. And if we've all got our backs turned trying to cover these layers and trying to cover Branch across the middle, he's going to run for 13 yards and then slide, and then they're off to the races a little bit. And so I want us to bring pressure to stress them, make them do it. I hope that some of it is disguised and surprising, but I don't even mind if some of it is, we're just going to get there. But you gotta be ready for the quarterback run game. And I don't think that on my bingo card last year when he was coming to the game late in the season, I'm so worried about the Gunnar Stockton quarterback run game next season against Georgia. I don't think I was thinking that yet, but it just seems like the type of thing where those, he's going to have 9 rushes for 51 yards and a touchdown, but every single one of those is a backbreaker, and it's just the worst thing in the world.
Their offensive line this year, run game, I wouldn't be worried about them. Passing game, if you're a Georgia fan, is a concern. Their left side has struggled some in the passing game. They lost 4 offensive line starters. They've got Juan Gaston's questionable, their 5-star true freshman right guard. Ernest Green, their redshirt junior, is probable, but he's coming off an injury. He did not play against Austin Peay. They started a 6'10 redshirt freshman. Yes, I said that correctly. 6'10, who ended up coming in and out, so they weren't super confident. They've been playing 8 offensive linemen at times, running guys in and out. Kirby's not afraid to do that. He's one of the very few coaches is not a pure these are my best 5. You're playing 99% of the snaps. So this is a gettable line. They have not been great in pass pro. They haven't been bad in the first 2 games, but they haven't been great. They have not been quite Georgia dominant. So I think this year their offensive line's gettable. And with Neyland, first-time start for Stockton, 4 new offensive line starters, potentially a couple freshmen are going to be out there, depending on how they set up. This is the game where you want to try and confuse them. I'm not a fan usually defensively of complicated. I think this is the game where Banks is going to need to throw his best out there.
And if you have, we'll talk about a couple more injuries in a second, but we know that McCoy's not back yet. It was an optimistic timeline to think he would be back, and we know Gibson's outside. You're probably looking at Hood and Redmond out there. And, maybe it's not the guys who we want out there. Maybe it's not the perfect version of the secondary that we previewed in preseason, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems like 2 guys who are going to be physical. It seems like 2 guys who are going to try and break up that pass downfield. If you're bringing extra guys, at least you have guys who are going to be up in somebody's mug if you need that physicality to try and, disrupt somebody off the line of scrimmage or stick with somebody. It wouldn't shock me if it leads to a penalty flag here and there. And we'll deal with the frustration on next week's episode, whatever that looks like. But I'd rather, I said it on the review after the Syracuse game, I'd rather have the physicality and see what it looks like and be able to bring pressure and know that they're going to disrupt somebody on a route than it all just turn into sitting back and waiting for the death knell, basically.
I dare those refs to make those calls in Neyland. They didn't against Alabama last year. So go ahead, try. Because either you're going to get booed out of the stadium or you're going to have to call it on Georgia. And
please call it on Georgia. I'm cool with that.
That's cool. Awesome. Great with that. So I agree.
I'll say real quick, I know we're flashing back to our offense against their defense with this point, but part of the reason I'm like, let them be physical if they're going to call it on Georgia, Joey's going to throw it.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to throw it. And so if it's downfield, if there's physicality, if that swipe happens a little too early, who knows if we'll get the call or not. But if they're making those calls, the ball will be in the air, and there's an opportunity for that to get called.
Speaking of Neyland, Kirby said something that ball fans, boy, did they try. Did they try to make it something? I
respect the attempt to seek bulletin board material, I guess. And I know sometimes, like, when you hear pros speak candidly about bulletin board material, there's times where stuff really clicks. And a lot of times I feel like it's personal stuff that we actually aren't even privy to. But the number one thing I always hear from former players is like, if it seems like BS, it does nothing for us. I don't know that this is bulletin board material for anybody in that locker room. And part of the reason it's not bulletin board material is because, unfortunately, or as my son would say, sadly enough, Kirby was extremely complimentary of Neyland Stadium and our football program.
So I'll read off the third part of the quote that you put in here. Quoting Kirby Smart, we're going to a tough place to play. First game on the road in the SEC. When you open up on the road in the SEC, it's always challenging. It will be important that our players understand that. This was the quotation right here that the fan base cut out. That the environment is something that you don't have to worry about. You got to worry about how you play, and sometimes that's easier said than done, especially with young players. But we'll prepare for it, and we're excited to go play. These are the games you come to Georgia to play in. I'm excited for these guys, end quote.
The part that got spliced out the most is that the environment is something you don't have to worry about. The reading between the lines, if you read the rest of the quote, not even the part where he directly says one of the toughest places to play in all of college football, just reading between the lines on that little stretch of what you just read, he is saying the environment is something you don't have to worry about, because if you start to worry about this environment, it is going to be worrisome for you. He is trying to inject, and I'm sure he does this with every one of his teams, that like combination of like coach talk stoicism that like allows you to focus play by play and focus just on your moment and control what you can control. Because in a place like Neyland Stadium, it's not the only place like this, but it is a place like this. In a place like Neyland Stadium, especially this weekend, if you start to think about that, it can overtake you. And he is pleading with his team to worry about how you play. And the reason that's easier said than done is because of the environment that you're in.
You can only worry about what you can control, is what he's saying, which is a life advice that everyone should take. Kirby's played in Neyland twice. He's coached in Neyland 9 times, either as an assistant or as a head coach. He's actually never lost in Neyland as a coach, which was sad to see. But he's clearly stating the players cannot control the noise, so there's no reason to be concerned about it. Yes, he knows Neyland's going to be incredibly loud. He knows the stakes of this game. And I can't remember really Kirby ever saying something that would be bulletin board material anyway, in general. So I I get it. It's fun for the fans. It's fun to put on the Twitter. It's fun to put on the Instagram. It's going to be fun to put on a hype video Friday night. I'm all for that. That's great. I think anybody who thinks he doesn't respect Neyland's not paying attention. It's pretty clear he does.
Yeah, he's one of those people who's like so focused on his team, but occasionally he'll let slip that he clearly like is aware of what's said about everything. Probably because he's just a psychopath, and like in a good like college football coach kind of way. As soon as I read the flash quote, I was like, it's got to be really weird circumstances for him to mean that. And then, sure enough, when you look in more detail, he didn't mean that. And again, we're kind of having a little bit of fun with it, but he understands the environments too well.
Do you remember in 2022 when that practice video or practice audio got leaked and he was just a screaming lunatic and the fans were like, look how worried he is. He's so concerned. Vols are going to run him up. Vols by 50. And they shut us down. So I get it. Like it's fun. It's fun to put in all the hype videos and stuff, but no, I don't really buy that. He was trying to disrespect Neyland. I think he's much smarter than that.
We didn't necessarily do this last week for ETSU, and part of that is a little bit of respect for the opponent, and we knew kind of which direction it was headed, and we weren't trying to just like, pick the tally that we got to. But this week, we are going to make a score prediction. We're going to see where we land on it, and then making our score prediction, I want it to be followed by how we win or how we lose. Like, what is the path to get there? It doesn't have to be a repeat of everything that we've said. We kind of know the strengths and weaknesses on both sides, but what path do you see to the score that you predict?
How we win is we win the turnover battle, or at least play it neutral. Georgia Stockton in particular, gets rattled due to the noise and magnitude of the game, which we've not really seen before, but they did last year against Ole Miss, so it's possible. Joey plays clean football, and we are able to stay on schedule with at least one major explosive. And what I mean by major explosive, I'm talking 50-plus yarder. Got to be efficient on third down and red zone. You have to communicate effectively on the O-line, especially against their stunts and twists. You got to pick up blitzing linebackers. Got to focus on getting in the right play more than speed in this game, in my opinion. Against Saban, Heupel and Tennessee could score because their ability to go quick always messed with Saban because they were a complex defense. As I mentioned, Kirby's superpower is being able to play basic when it's basic and get exotic and communicate effectively when they need to. I would also say Tennessee doesn't have to get a ton of sacks, but they got to get pressure on Stockton with 4 on first and second down. I put blitzing heavily is asking Stockton to beat you, but I think at this point I would just take it. Like I would just go with it. Got to contain it in the pocket, be disciplined with your zones and your gaps. And I would say 2 turnovers by Tennessee, the game's over. And I got to say you have to at least have a 40% success rate on dropbacks, assuming Tennessee can run the ball effectively, which I think they actually will. So I know that's like how you win every football game. I totally get that. Like that's not exactly breaking the landscape of college football or anything. But I mentioned so many points because they have to do all of that. Some games you don't have to do that and you can win in the SEC. Against Georgia, you have to do every single thing I just mentioned in order to win this game.
For me, and I'm going to get there in 2 different ways. We have to win the field position battle in a significant way. We will not, we cannot and will not, it's just been shown we cannot and will not just slowly go down the field for 80 yards against these guys or 90 or 75. We might be able to once or twice, but not enough. And that's like not accounting for like one of these drives where we do get going and there's a turnover or something like that. Like if you do it, you got to cash in, but you have to set yourself up to not have to do it every time. The 2 different ways we could get there. One, if we can get a big play on special teams, suddenly the field position battle, and especially if we got more than one, whether it's a block kick, whether it's a good return, I don't even mean like we need a punt return for a touchdown. Just get us, instead of the ball at the 25, get us the ball at their 45. I actually think there's ways, with the creativity we've seen from Heupel and him being in his bag sometimes in these big games, there's ways where if we're at the 45, like we're a little more loose, we're not afraid to take a shot, we might get in the end zone a little bit more. The other way that I think we can get there, and it relates to especially what we saw on the 24 tape, and us like feeling like it was like our brains were breaking seeing how they were able to drop that many and still have some kind of like penetration of our O-line. We have to have more than just one explosive run.
Mhm.
We've gotten an explosive. We had obviously the huge one in 23. Samson had one last year. And Kirby's aware that we can hit an explosive, but it has to be more than just an explosive. We need that run that takes us from, getting the ball with a fresh set of downs and having to go all the way down the field to suddenly being in their territory. And I don't know that our backs are going to take it all the way every time, but get down the sideline and make them push you out of bounds 47 yards later, and then 37 yards later, and then 26 yards later. If we can get more, like a set of explosive runs, that is the other way that I understand it's part of the offense, but that is the other way that we quote unquote flip the field and set us up to, suddenly we have a fresh set of downs in a shorter field, and they might not be able to just sit back as cozy as ever with their off coverage. And, maybe they still will do that, but if they have to creep up at all, maybe there's grass for those receivers and we hit on one of those explosives. But I think short fields are the key.
The last 2 years, and I think this is quarterback dependent, Heupel's got conservative on fourth down. He cannot do this. He cannot do it this game. If it's a 4th and 3 at the 40, not on the Georgia 40,
Sure.
he's got to go for it. If it's 4th and 1 at the 24, Georgia, you're close to the red zone, you got to go for it. Max Gilbert's a good kicker. He's been very good to Tennessee the last year plus. He should not be on the field unless it's obvious. So
the way that, because he's done this, you're right, a couple times where he's shelled up a little bit and either punted or just not been willing to make that borderline call. I respect the ever living out of the way that Kirby creates magic out of this off coverage combined with physicality, combined with these weird fronts. Make him do it on 4th and 3. Make him have an answer for the possibility of a run, the possibility of a heavy personnel package, and the possibility of a screen on 4th and 3. Maybe it leads to creeping more guys in. Maybe it leads to him having to not be as off in coverage, and then things open up. But it doesn't feel like it, but that is a time where you actually have a chance to have the advantage with the personnel and formation they can put out there. We have to find the moments for that.
I do not want to go after this game. Man, what if we had gone for it there? Or should we really have punted? Or did we need 3 field goals? We needed 2 touchdowns, not 3 field goals. I don't want to do that. Like, I just think in this type of game, and honestly, like when you think about it, the last 4 years, it hasn't really gotten to that point against Georgia.
No, it hasn't.
But I have a feeling it can this year. And I think the other thing, this is just a little extra I'm throwing at you. If I'm Heupel and I win the toss, I'm taking the ball. I'm going to take the ball. I'm running my script. I'm going up 7-0. I'm going to have Neyland rocking, and I'm going to see what Gunnar Stockton's made of. I understand a lot of coaches don't like doing that. I totally understand trying to get the twofer at half and then to start the half. I'm taking the ball, and I want the 7, especially because their scripts have worked against Kirby in the last 3 of the last 4 years. Give me the ball. Let's score. Let's heat up Stockton, and let's get up 7-0, get Neyland firing. Let's try and get a 3 and out, and then let's see if we can control the game script.
If any kind of combination of we do that, and then we do have that big special teams play, and suddenly we have the short field that comes after that, like now we're cooking. And we've seen early momentum and it gets squashed, but now we're cooking to a point where, you can see a world where we get into the 20s. And then it's really a matter of them having to match. They've been pretty darn good at matching. And so, what is your score prediction for the game?
I've implemented the Saban rule, unfortunately, with Kirby Smart in Georgia. I cannot pick Tennessee until I see it. So I'm taking Georgia 27-20. It's not even a criticism against Joey, because I think it's really weird. And I'm going to go off tangent for a second, because I think September, this game, really actually benefits Tennessee. I really do have it earlier. But at the same time, I wish I had some more Joey tape and film and comfortability with the system. So I'm in like a catch-22 with it. But overall, I'm just going to take Georgia 27-20. I wouldn't be shocked if it got 27-24. I will say this. This will be a game in the fourth quarter, arguably for the first time in this series since Kirby's taken over against Heupel. So I will say it's going to be close. I think Tennessee has a chance. I think they can absolutely win this game. I'm just taking Georgia just because I have implemented the Saban rule. I have to see it to believe it.
I think the one thing I like about it being September is Joey's still at that point where like he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he hasn't had that funky little game where he goes on the road in the SEC and just has a stinker. And who knows if he has that or not. He's really in control of the offense. But him coming off a game where it's like he has a stinker and then he doesn't have that same assertiveness, like that would scare me going in. So it's like I almost want him to be green enough to make a mistake, because maybe that's the mistake that gets us down the field a little bit. And it seems like maybe his personality type to just YOLO a little bit no matter what. And so maybe it wouldn't matter. But I kind of like the fact that he is brimming with confidence and willing to take shots. And I don't want him to be gun shy at all going into this game. Maybe he never would be. For me, I think it's interesting that we both predicted that we're going to go over the 17-point mark. And I feel so silly to have that as some marker, but it is. My prediction is 24-19 Vols. This is stubbornly, I said stubbornly, not stupidly, stubbornly staying in line with my preseason predictions. I had us beating Georgia preseason. I still feel that there are ingredients that are there. Some of those ingredients, I have not gotten to see the version I wanted. Combination of like we don't know on the right tackle yet. We do know with the one who's played. We don't know on the corners completely. We haven't seen the flash from the safety. Like we have questions that need to be answered. But there's also nothing in the past couple weeks that would sway me from making that prediction preseason, as in like I think the ingredients are there where that could be an outcome. 24-19, a stop of Stockton as they are moving the ball down the field. And then we have enough success running the ball to take the clock down. Maybe they get it one more time late and they have a heave, but from their own territory is my guess.
It is odd that Tennessee in 2 of these games has been ranked ahead of Georgia in 2 out of the 4 years. And I did have a lot of hope in 22, but we kind of mentioned a few episodes ago how incredible that defense was. And it felt like we talked so much like actual film stuff. And then I'm going to say this. It feels like we used a lot of that juju against Alabama. And I will say this is the best I've felt going into a game against Georgia with Josh Heupel. I do think that this is the best one. And a lot of that, unfortunately, not is because Georgia's so young. And with the fact that they've not looked great in their 2 games, I think I honestly do believe Tennessee can absolutely win this game. I just want to see it first. In the first half, if we've got 17 points, I'm going to be ecstatic. Don't get me wrong. I need to see it, though.
when you and I have watched enough, I think sports in general, but Tennessee football, or combination of Tennessee football and like our favorite teams playing in big games, our respective favorite teams. Ignore the score predictions we just made. Ignore the Saban rule that you've implemented, and I completely understand it.
Mm-hmm.
What is your gut telling you?
What is my gut telling me?
Is your gut saying loss?
My gut is telling me it's going to come down to the final drive. That's what my gut's telling me, that Tennessee's going to either be able to win the game or prevent Georgia from winning the game on the final drive. And this is the best I've felt. I also think, and this is just the dumb ball fan in me because I love being kicked in the nuts as a ball fan. The Joey story of the 6-year kid who, man, maybe not even kid, who shouldn't be playing football when you actually think about it, between how his career started, the NCAA ruling, all of this. Being able to get Kirby Smart and Neyland for Tennessee to beat Georgia first time in 8 years and establish themselves as a national title and the second favorite in the SEC if they win this game behind Texas, maybe even the favorite, is just so good that the storyteller in me wants to believe so bad. But then, I watched that 24 film.
I know.
And I'm like, Kirby, what the hell, man?
I am.
How do you do this?
There's a part of me that is like, go be a legend, and it's absolutely in play.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even mentioned it. We got game day in town. All like the ingredients are there. Go be a legend. But there's a small part of me where the ingredients are there with these wide receivers and the tight end, and frankly, their backup tight end to be spreading things out and finding space, and me backing up and saying, who do they think they are? The New York Jets, and us really feeling it really early on. It's stubbornness, but I'll go down with the stubbornness. I don't mind it.
You're a better Vol fan than me.
I don't think I am. I think I'm a sillier one. I'm ready to be hurt. I have a couple more thoughts on it towards the end. I want to jump to kind of a wider lens discussion. And then we're going to make it a relatively quick one and then get into a little bit of nitty gritty. But this is one of those games. We said it at the top. This is one of those games. Florida blows it against USF. Suddenly, game day's coming to town. We don't know who the guest picker is as of recording, but the vibes are going to be through the roof. And we love those in college football. I love that it's happening in Knoxville this weekend, but it's going to be happening other places. Looking at the September slate, and I don't know, it's almost like we're out of the first couple of weeks and we had like the openers, like we knew the games we were excited about early on. We knew Georgia was early, and so we talked about that. But we're almost like, okay, what does the rest of the slate look like now that we've come up for air for just a second? Looking at September, what September game, we're going to stop there. We'll do it for October as well, but what September slate game has you most excited or most just like you can't keep your eyes off of it right now?
I'm going to stick with the SEC. I know we talked a lot of Georgia. That Georgia-Alabama game on the 27th is so interesting because if Georgia loses, it's almost a panic mode bowl when you look at it. And I just want to see how Alabama is going to handle going into Georgia after everything that's happened, even if Georgia wins or loses. Because if they get beat bad, whether Georgia beats us or not, then DeBoer officially is on the hot seat. And then everything about the college football landscape slowly shifts. And that will be fascinating to watch from a narrative standpoint. That's the game I'm really curious. And I know it might not have like the big number 1, number 2 matchup that we might potentially get that week. But that, in terms of what college football is going to look like in a couple of years, could be the most interesting.
And frankly, I mean, props to them. They won the game, but Alabama pulled one out to beat Georgia last year.
Yes, they did.
And so that's one that I think they're going to handle Wisconsin with ease, and then I think both teams have a bye week and they're building up towards the 27th. But that one it's another one where it's like our eyes are going to be locked onto it. I have a couple on my radar. One is just funny. App State playing at Boise is hilarious. I think for the next 2 weeks, they might have a bye somewhere in there, but for the next 2 weeks, my Mountaineers go to Hattiesburg and then they go to Boise, Idaho for some football. It's just interesting where we are in college football. The other two, the two more like my eyes will be on them no matter what kind of games. Florida at Miami.
Yes.
It's been kind of teetering. It's the week after our big game this weekend. We'll see if Miami handles USF the way it seems like people still expect them to, which surprises me. And then also on the 20th, and maybe I'm just ready for that weekend, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma on the 20th. It's a home game for Oklahoma. The tier's going to be comfortable. There's a really good chance they have a ton of success and great for them. But Arnold was not as bad as things went last year. And so it's just going to be interesting if he can pop off a little bit with some talented wide receivers and, make some noise, give them a little scare, because Oklahoma fans are going to be out for blood because of how last season went. And those games sometimes just creep up on you a little bit, especially in the SEC.
Yes.
When you feel completely sure that you're going to embarrass this guy, sometimes it's 20-19 in the fourth quarter, and he has a little bit of control of the game, or he's very integral to the outcome. And so that one kind of is sticking with me a little bit. It's a little more under radar, but sticking with me a little bit. You had we'll say a rant, a diatribe about the state of coaching in college football, but actually I think probably in a way that people aren't expecting. And so I'm going to give you the floor and let you, I think, give guys some compliments, but talk about more than just a couple of guys in that sense as well.
Right. So for those who might just listen in general, aren't here for baldnation.com, we do a lot of scouring on baldnation.com for topics and everything. And I've been on Ball Nation since 2008. This has been an epidemic since I've joined that forum for almost 20 years. I understand that just because you win a national title does not mean you are a good college football coach. Larry Coker, Gene Chizik, Ed Orgeron, those were not good college football coaches. However, there are 136 FBS head coaches, Daniel. There has to be more than 2 good coaches. And I'm tired of hearing, well, he's only good because he has great players. Yeah, guys, that's your job as a college football head coach is to get great players.
That's
in the job description. It used to be 50-50. It's probably bigger than that now with the transfer portal. If you get the best players, even if you have advantages with your recruiting base, whether you're Texas, Alabama, Miami, Florida, Michigan, Ohio State, whatever, you still have to get those guys' signatures. Especially with the transfer portal, makes it so much harder. And I think it's what I would call the Sabanification of the sport. And it's rotted our brain to think you're only successful if you win a national title every year, or if you win multiple national titles. And this is part of the reason why people don't care about bowl games anymore, at least in the grand scheme of things, is because how successful Saban was winning national titles every year or being in the hunt. Everyone just assumes that's supposed to be how it is. Kirby Smart is an awesome head coach. It sucks to say it. I don't like saying it. It's not fun. I wish Georgia sucked. It was more fun, when I was 5 years old and no one cared about him. Okay, I totally get that. But just because he went, 11-3 last year, does not mean he's a bad coach. It does not mean he failed because they didn't win a national title for the 3rd time in 4 years. And we just have we also have this bad habit of thinking that since coaching is not athletic ability, that coaches can't devolve, and you're not supposed to lose your coaching ability. And it's an ever-changing landscape with coaches, right? Jimbo Fisher was an awesome college football coach in 2013. The game changed, and he couldn't do it. Philip Fulmer, Lloyd Carr, we've seen plenty of those guys, right? So I think people just assume like, well, you either have it or you don't. And it's just not how it is. Like it takes you years to build up to be a good coach. And sometimes it takes a quick stumble for you not to be a good head coach. So I just would like people to, the two things is just like, hey, there's more than two good coaches. Jason Candle at Toledo is an awesome football coach. Okay. Just because he doesn't win national title does not mean he isn't a good one. Bill Snyder is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He didn't win a national title. Okay. He's still awesome. He's still one of the best coaches we've ever seen. And the second thing is just be like, give some guys time. This is the Josh Heupel part of it. A lot of guys don't win their national title their first 5 years in, right? It's really hard. You have to learn. It's coaching is about what you don't know as much as what you do know. So that's kind of my point. Is I think this is how we talk about college football coaches. Is we're smarter than this. We can have more nuanced discussion than, well, he's good or he sucks.
Yeah, and especially when it leans towards like the much more common refrain is that he's trash, trash, trash.
Right.
And I'm glad you made the point about giving people time, because the whole time I was sitting here thinking, I agree with you, and I think so much of it comes from like both sides of the ball have to be humming on all possible cylinders at all times. And it's like, and maybe it's because I just mentioned Oklahoma, but Venables is a good example where
Yeah.
I think probably inarguably that dude's a good football coach. And,
Mm-hmm.
if that eventually becomes, again, much more of a focus on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where he finds his success again, if things don't work out in a pressure packed Oklahoma setting, I get it. Like, it doesn't always work. But you got to let people build. We said it about Heupel. I'm willing to say it about other people. You got to let people build. And it's like Venables was like a laughing stock last year. And as of like the end of a primetime game last week, everyone has like all the faith in the world in him because something flashed. And it's like, no, he was probably roughly around the same level of coach the whole time, and probably trending toward being a really good one in both settings. But we are very quick to find the way that we can accuse them of being trash, instead of being like, oh, there are parts of this that are just constantly really, really good.
The other thing too is situation more so than ever in college football matters. I think Josh Heupel is a great football coach. I think if you hired him in 2018, he would have been fired in 3 years because Tennessee was just not in a good position. Lincoln Riley's the perfect example of
I was
this.
going to say his name
Lincoln
too.
Riley, arguably the best start to any coaching career for a college football coach that didn't include a national title. And now, if USC goes 8-4, he's either on the hot seat or he's going to get fired, right? And this is a guy who was the favorite to land the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job at one point. So your situation, your ability to work with your AD, what's your boosters like? Are you managing funds correctly with your football team? It's a completely different conversation. We're going to have a lot more guys flash and not flash year to year. We joked a few weeks ago, is Mario Cristobal a good coach? I don't know. Do you know? No one does. He's been an FBS coach for over a decade. So it's yes, it's fun to make fun of guys when they make dumb mistakes. It's fun to talk trash. Don't get me wrong.
We're
If you
going
want
to
to
do it
trash
too.
Dabo, yeah, if you want to talk trash Dabo Sweeney, go ahead. I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. But like, we also have to be like, there's more than 4 good football coaches at the same time. Like, and sometimes just because it didn't work doesn't mean the guy can't coach. I think of Rich Rodriguez at Michigan. He's a good coach. And I know like Arizona, he did a really good job there. It didn't end great, but I mean, it's some places it just is not going to work. It's like anything else in life.
Yeah. Yeah. My final thought on this weekend, and I'm very excited for it. I'll say this, especially with you, Z. No matter what happens, I'm excited to analyze and talk about it. I hope it's the most fun thing in the world. But no matter what happens, I actually am excited to analyze and talk about it, because you want to talk about learning something in a game, this is the weekend where you learn stuff. But I will caution everyone, whether you're worried about the playoff or the rest of the season or the schedule, whatever it is that is weighing heavy, the outcome of this weekend's game is not destiny. And that's win or lose. The outcome of this weekend's game is not destiny. If we win, it just means that everybody's going to be at us for the rest of the season. And there are multiple thorns on our side that would be at us more and more and more for the rest of the season. We saw it in 22. We overcame that one, and then everybody was giving us their best shot in the world for the rest of the season, including Georgia. And then if we lose, there's still a landscape out ahead of us where we got to bring it some games. And yeah, fans only have so much of an effect on the game. But if we go into this mode of, oh, let's throw our hands up, the rest of the schedule doesn't matter because Georgia came to Neyland, there's just no way to do it. It's just no way to do it. And people can have their, like, you can't account for taste on how people like to respond to these things. But acting like then going to Tuscaloosa and going to Gainesville just don't matter anymore. What did you think was going to happen before the season? No matter what happens this weekend, I'm excited to dig in on it.
This is not your older brother's college football anymore. One loss is not ruining your season. So if Tennessee struggles, Kirby does his Kirby stuff defensively, Joey doesn't look great, wide receivers aren't ready, doesn't mean the season's over. Doesn't mean Tennessee can't have a great year. Okay. Yeah, the margin of error shrinks significantly. But overall, Tennessee can still accomplish all of its goals. And if they win, we saw last year after we beat Oklahoma, doesn't mean that just because you beat the best team in your schedule, you're going undefeated. You've got to play well every week. You have to be focused. You have to execute. You have to practice well during the week. So I would caution fans, we're in September. This is not a Georgia November game, right? It's a little bit different where stakes, I think you could argue, were a little higher in the season portion of it, right? Because it was November football. Overall, Tennessee can still accomplish everything, no matter if they win or lose. I just would caution fans, like, just relax if they do lose and don't go crazy if they win, right? We still got a lot of football to play. We're still going to have 9 to 13 more games after this, after Saturday. So I think that would be my caution of all fans. I think it's a great point. And just because if Kirby Smart kicks our ass again does not mean Josh Heupel's a bad coach. That's to kind of tie up both of our points, right? And so that's the other thing. Don't panic about the coaching staff if it's a 27-20 loss. And don't think Josh Heupel owns him all of a sudden because it's a 34-28 win.
Enjoy the spectacle this weekend. You're allowed to pause and enjoy it. Our program is at a point where this is a spectacle, and it is one of the best ones in college football, and I'm excited for the ride with all of y'all.
I'm excited. It's going to be great. I cannot wait to talk to you, win or lose Thursday. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and it's just going to be awesome for college football and for Tennessee. Tennessee's in great shape to really make some noise, and I think Tennessee, no matter what happens, is going to show. I think Josh Heupel's going to have this team prepared.
Send them out.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. Please follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube at Power T Talk. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts as well. We appreciate you guys, and go Vols.